Good morning. Welcome to Exploring Economic Development with MEDC. I'm Meredith Harris, your host for episode 20 of our live video podcast. Jill, it's episode 20. Oops.
And I'm already crushing this. Hold on, I look a little different.
There you are. Nope, that's me. Okay, all right. We're off to a good start.
So welcome, take two,
Take two.
Meredith.
Welcome to Exploring Economic Development with MEDC. I'm Meredith Harris. This is Jill Morin, and we are here for episode 20.
Yes.
The first episode of 2022. We're really excited to have with us a special guest, which you've already seen, but it's Jon Weaver from MBI.
Yes.
And we're super excited to talk to him about life sciences and biomanufacturing, all things bio-related for Central Massachusetts.
So fitting.
Yeah.
With Marlborough, Massachusetts here.
Yeah, it's one of our wonderful partners, neighbor. So I'm not going to get too much into that quite yet because we've got a few administrative things to go over. But recap, last time we saw you guys was early December. We had Jenney Cataldo on. She was a wonderful guest to talk about the hotel industry, not only in Marlborough, but kind of the hotel industry in general. Learned a lot from her, which was a really fun, exciting episode. We learned a lot about Apex too, oddly enough.
So much. You definitely want to make sure you check that episode out. And if you're not really if you're like, I don't know about economic development, I'm just here for the entertainment, catch the end of that episode because we did play our favorite game with her, which is
Where Do You Go?
Where Do You Go? Right. In Marlborough, because she loves Marlborough.
She does love Marlborough. Yes. She also loves Apex, which is great.
Plugging that.
Anyways, so without further ado, any admin stuff we need to talk about as we kick off the new year?
Yes. So if you're watching this live, that means you're joining us either on Facebook or YouTube, and you can comment. So if you have any questions for us, for our guests, if you have any ideas about future episodes, or you want us to clarify or expand on anything, go ahead and write in the chat. And then we'll be able to integrate that into the show and answer your questions. And it's super fun. The more you participate, the more you'll get out of it because we can kind of really tailor what we're talking about towards our audience. Right. If you're catching this on the replay, you might be watching this on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, or live
cable television.
There we go.
Yes.
WMCT TV, our local cable access channel here in Marlborough. So we will leave our phone number here at the very end and our email address so that you can also leave any comments there. Send us an email. We'd love to get to know you and to reach you better and all that fun stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So now we're going to introduce our special surprise guest, and
Guys,
nobody knows who it is.
So excited.
But Jon, thanks for joining us this morning. We're really excited to have you on. Tell us all about yourself. Tell us about how you got into the industry before you tell us about MBI, because MBI is super cool, and we can talk about that for a long time. But tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Thank you guys for having me, Meredith and Jill. It's awesome to be here. Cool to see what an amazing setup you have for this awesome show, and thrilled to be here with MEDC. You guys do such a good job of promoting Marlborough and Central Massachusetts as just such an important part of this regional biotech cluster. And we're just thrilled to be partners with you guys on that.
Neighbors.
So, a little bit about me. I've got I'm an English major who's working in BioTech, which is, makes total sense. But I really have a background in community real estate development. So I worked for a group for a long time called the Worcester Business Development Corporation, who did projects all over Central Massachusetts, and is really just kind of a gem for Central Mass, where they work on taking properties that are underutilized, bringing in public subsidies to get properties that are underwater. Back to marketable use, and there's a long history of properties that they've developed with
That's a great organization.
Awesome organization, and they've been able to accomplish so much, and a big part of the renaissance that's happening in Worcester right now.
Right.
And, it was a great place for me to kind of learn brownfields and real estate development and all those
fun
types
stuff,
of things, which is really cool. And, get involved in community development, which fascinated me. I then went to Mass Development and did basically the same thing statewide for about a year with the awesome team over there.
And we were just talking about how much we love Kelly Arvidsson. Shout out to Kelly, right?
Absolutely. Kelly and her whole family are just awesome people.
Yeah.
So there's just so many good people over at Mass Development, and they do great work as well. So, and then I got an opportunity to come to MBI, and we were talking earlier about kids and family, and I had little kids at the time, and not having to commute into Boston, and
pretty good deal.
Being able to live locally and work in Worcester, which was a lot easier to get in and out of. It just made sense for me at that time.
Where are you from?
So I live now in Sturbridge. At the time, we were living in Auburn. So it was a huge quality of life benefit for us. And then when
So
I got to
you're
MBI, I
living
realized
what
how
you
cool
sell,
that
right?
was too. So
Yeah. Okay, so fun fact, I have an English background as well. My bachelor's degree is in English.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. So
Mine too. Yep, love it. So
And I've got my master's in teaching English as a second language.
see?
but you have a bio background,
And then
don't you?
I got bio certified when I was teaching at Marlborough High School.
Oh,
That's funny.
ability
But-
to communicate.
Right?
Essentially important.
Well, right?
So,
That's exactly it. That's really funny. That I never would have guessed that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So we have a comment already?
We do.
All right.
And I wanted to make sure we got to it really quickly. Kelly Arvidsson. She said, "Love you guys. Great to
Hi,
see
Kelly.
you all."
That's awesome.
Hey,
I
Kelly.
wonder if
Love
her
Kelly.
ears were burning.
They
They had to have.
they
been.
had to have been.
It's too funny.
And we've also got a few other guests before we get into our, our questions and our topic for today. I want to make sure we say hi to all of you who are reaching out. We've got President Ossing saying
Hi, President
Happy New
Ossing.
Year.
Happy New Year.
Our shows are not the same without you. So
That's
happy
right.
that you're joining us this morning. We've got Dottie saying hi, Happy New Year.
Good morning, Dottie.
And we've got Julio Souza, hello. And we have a special guest, one of our favorites,
Is it Spencer?
Spencer.
Yay! Hey, Spencer. Good
So,
morning.
Spencer, I don't know if you've seen some of our previous episodes. He's one of our super involved Exploring Economic Development fans.
Mm-hmm.
He used to work here at the Cable Access Channel, and so
Awesome.
he was always with us. And he's moved on to a different position, which we're super thrilled for him. Spencer,
Congrats,
good to
Spencer. We
see
miss you.
We do
Yeah.
miss you.
I love it. I mean, one of the important things in all of this is we really need to do a better job altogether of telling the Central Mass story. So
Yeah.
to everybody on the line, thank you for your help in trying to spread that word.
Yeah,
We
Awesome.
absolutely. We got
gotta
a
let
good group
everybody
of
know
people.
how
For
good it is
sure.
out this way. So
It's awesome.
Oh, and you've got a little shout out, a little wave.
Hello there.
Hello, husband.
Good morning.
As well
Nice
as
to see you
Gary.
today.
Thank you so much, everybody. Keep the comments coming, especially once we start our conversation. Let us know if you want us to clarify anything or have any specific guests for our specific questions.
For our guests.
Goodness, 2022
Jill,
is
I know. You're on your A game always, but
always
let's get it.
crushing it. All right.
All right, so let's jump into it. All right, so MBI. I know what MBI is. Kelly knows what MBI is, but for anybody that's watching that does not know what you guys do, give us the layman's terms. What is it that you do? What are you guys doing over there in the great city of Worcester?
Sure. So the basic sense of MBI, we're a nonprofit business incubator for biotech companies that also serves as an economic development and workforce development agency. So we're a nonprofit.
Yep.
And ironically, one of the things a lot of people don't know is actually MBI is the longest running biotech incubator in the entire state of Massachusetts.
So cool.
Located in Worcester. And it was initially created out of the Chamber of Commerce in Worcester at a time after the UMass Medical School had just been sited in the city, and manufacturing base of Worcester County was declining. They said, how do we try to prepare for what the new economy is going to be?
So what time frame was that?
That was probably the medical school was cited in I believe in the late 70s.
Okay.
MBI was founded in 1984.
Okay. Oh,
And
wow.
really, the leaders at the time were really trying to say, how do we get ahead of this? How do we be aggressive?
Smart.
And founded MBI as an agency to work on that. Ironically, a lot of the things that we're looking at today are things that they were trying to do 30 years ahead of their
ago.
time.
Wow.
Right.
And a lot of past is prologue kind of themes that we're finding in a lot of the work that we're doing today as the industry has really matured
Right.
to a point where MBI is able to hit a new gear. So fundamentally what we do is if you're a scientist working at Pfizer or Boston Scientific or any of the other groups that are in this region, and you want to start a biotech company, it's really hard
Yeah.
because you can't do biotech in your garage. You can't do it in your living
You
room.
sure?
You can't. You have to.
That's
You
tricky.
need such specialized equipment, specialized infrastructure, specialized HVAC.
Right.
There's just so much that goes into.
And it's expensive.
It's extraordinarily expensive.
Right.
So for someone to start a company as biotech without the support of a group like MBI,
Right.
they're gonna have to raise a significant amount of money and put a significant amount of
Yeah.
that into things that aren't relating to their science.
Right.
So what we've done is we've put that infrastructure in place, and we've made it so that you can show up on Friday, sign a lease, and start your biotech company on Monday with all that stuff in there.
That's so
You
cool.
bring in your benchtop equipment, bring in your consumables, and you're ready to really start working on science, which is the key part of it.
The key part. Well, so I was
Yeah.
explaining this to Jill this morning because I said, it's an incubator, and she said, well, okay, so what's an incubator?
What does
and
that
Right.
mean with
Yeah.
with business? Yeah.
So I was trying to explain, like, it's shared equipment, and you know,
Yeah.
you can come in and instead of having to spend the money that they don't have right away
Right.
on things that they necessarily can't afford, they can come in and start to fund
Right.
and get the investors, things like that. But they've got the equipment through you guys to be able to get started.
Yeah, so I mean, we have labs that are literally like the size of a walk-in closet where you
Wow.
can start a biotech company very economically. You have access
Wow.
to a lot of the core equipment that we provide, as well as with our partners at WPI and the medical school.
Yeah.
And it reduces that barrier to entry for people that have potentially curative treatments that need to get to market. Patients are waiting.
Right.
It gives
Which
them.
it's never been more important, right?
Yeah.
Than now.
The spotlight was on biotech in the last year or so, and
Right.
man, did they show up.
Right.
So.
Right.
So the alternatives, if people didn't have this, I mean, there are some universities that offer something like this, but then wouldn't that be then the ownership would still be of the university? Does that make sense? Like I know there's labs at university that can house this type of development and exploration, but then it's owned by the university and not by the potential business.
Yeah, there are, and usually once it gets to the point of really becoming a company instead of a tech transfer type piece, it needs to graduate out. It just requires more space, requires more attention, and there is obviously some tech transfer licensing issues that come with doing that on campus as well. So we've been fortunate. We're home to 58 early stage companies right now.
58.
Yeah, and they're
Wow.
trying to cure cancer, in various forms. We've got companies working on this new RNA technology for oncology applications. We have companies, actually, we have a company doing COVID testing, so we felt that was a way that we could contribute back. We've got companies working on glioblastoma and small cell lung cancer and, all of the pancreatic cancer, which is really a place where there's not a lot of hope. He's working on a way to try to provide hope for those patients. So, at the end of the day, we say, we're a place where, cures happen here. Our goal is to create an environment where people can try to, use their genius to, bring the cures to the patients that are desperately waiting for them to get there.
And so they're all in the space together, right? So
Yeah.
do you see a lot of, like, maybe not collaboration between each other because they're doing different things, but they've got to learn from each other, right? And talk to each other, and
they're all going through a very unique experience.
Right.
Being an entrepreneur is like such a unique experience.
Right.
You have everything on the line. You've now gone from being an expert in one field to knowing how to, now you have to figure out how to work QuickBooks and how to, I want to provide an employee benefits. Like there's all of these unique experiences that they go through as an entrepreneur, having to really, learn how to build a business and not just research
outside
their
of their
science.
craft.
Absolutely.
So there's a real camaraderie that goes with that. COVID's been tough because a lot of that camaraderie and culture that we've been trying to foster has been tough to do.
Right.
But we've maintained that really well, and the companies have maintained that really well. And there's kind of a really unique experience that they're all going through that they can share by being in a co-working type facility.
And so did you see, you mentioned COVID. Did they stop coming in, or these are the types of companies they're coming in? They're not working from home.
Our team was home for a week in the first surge in
That was
COVID
it.
because you can't do lab work from home,
Right.
and they were all deemed essential. I mean, a lot of the companies at that time, no matter what you were working on, you were a COVID company because you were trying to see how what you're doing could help because the globe was looking for a solution.
Right.
So we want to make sure that the doors are open for them to do that. So we were in the lab pretty much the whole time. The companies were in the whole time, and they put themselves at some risk because what they're doing is so important.
Right.
So.
Right. And so, okay, so they come. I'm just trying to think for people that don't understand incubators
it's such a unique design.
Model.
Well, you know what I'm thinking of? Like at the local cable access channel, any public access channel or cable station, they have a facility that residents are allowed to come in and use.
So it's similar.
I mean, in terms of,
The
it's
usage.
similar,
No, it's super cool because then you get to see these companies that come in, they're progressing, and then you see them, we call it like they graduate, right? So they graduate from MBI and then they go on to do their own things, which we've had a couple of stories in Marlborough where folks graduated from MBI. StageBio is one, over on Donald Lynch Boulevard. But, that's really that's the whole point, right? Is to see them grow and then have the next class of people come in.
Yeah, they're a great story. So, Tom Galati shows up at MBI looking for a lab space to start his company that was doing a variety of histology and pathology related sampling that benefits other people in the biotech industry. Needed a place to do it. He was actually based in Virginia, but knew that the biotech cluster was here, this is where he wanted to start his company.
Right.
So he took a small lab at MBI, hired his first couple of employees. They grew up. They started generating sales. They started to add more people to their team. We helped them through each phase of that, adding additional space as they continue to grow in a sustainable way so that they didn't have to bite off more than they can chew.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they got to a point where they were actually able to close a pretty significant financing event, acquire another group, rebrand as StageBio.
Right.
And they're now an awesome success story here in Marlborough that continues to grow over on Donald Lynch Boulevard. That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Right.
It's about cures for patients and jobs for people in the area. And, that's really the mission.
They probably wouldn't have been able to do it as quickly as they did without your help, right? So instead of spending money up front on equipment and things, they were able to focus on the technology and getting the research and then the capital investment, things like that, which is, I think, what makes your organization so unique and such a game changer for these companies. That's just really cool.
Yeah.
That's really kind of neat.
Yeah,
it's very exciting.
It's cool. It's also, there's patients should have a lot of hope because, you think, the promise that people like Sidney Farber were looking for, 50, 60, 70 years ago of like, how do we actually cure cancer? How do we actually get to a point where we can treat patients? Cancer research and some of the stuff that's on the front lines right now in some of these places is really advancing. It's pretty incredible, with personalized medicine and CAR T therapies and new RNA technologies around the mRNA as they start to employ that towards cancer as well. It's really exciting to see where cancer research is headed, and there's a lot of hope, I think, for the patients that are desperately waiting for that right now.
Well, that's awesome.
These guys are working on it. It takes a long time, but they're desperately working on it.
And from an economic development perspective, it's so important for people like myself and our team at MEDC to partner and to have relationships with people like you, because when those folks are looking for their next stage, we want to make sure that we're in the top of John's mind of, hey, these companies want to move on to the next phase and get a building somewhere, their own space. And, we want to make sure that they know Marlborough is on the map and that we're available and we have space available to them. So that's why relationships between our organizations are so important.
Yeah, and Marlborough is so well positioned for that. One of the key things for companies as they start to grow out of our incubator or just start to get funded in other ways and start to expand is they can't wait for space.
Right.
They just can't. When you have a 10-year process to get from idea to patients, you can't spend a year or two waiting for real estate to open up or develop. So that availability and that speed to market is so key.
Right.
And Marlborough is a great location with affordable space, available space, lab ready space that can make that it makes it a really attractive location for a bunch of our graduates to go to. And I think you guys have a graphic somewhere that shows our graduates end up all over Massachusetts, but a big propensity of them end up in Metro West just because of that key secret sauce. Well,
and honestly, we have president of the city council is watching the show today, educating himself on things like this. It's because of people like Mike Ossing and the mayor, Arthur Vigent, the administration in the city that understands the importance of these companies and understands the benefit and the economic development value that they bring. So kudos to the team here in Marlborough, not just the economic development team, but our whole team that sees that and really wants to position ourselves to be business friendly and open the doors for folks to come in. So do we have another comment?
We do.
Question?
And the timing could not be perfect.
Is it President Ossing?
It is, yes. So President Ossing is asking, we've got two questions here. One is, why should Marlborough try to attract life science companies to set up in the city? And maybe directed towards the potential companies, but then also, Meredith, if you could rope in, why is that great for Marlborough residents as well? I think that's...
Well, and so President Ossing is also a finance guy, so talk about the revenue that comes into the community because of these companies. I mean, the life science industry right now is booming. Yeah. To your point, they're not slowing down. They need space. They need it yesterday. So we've actually seen for the first time in my time here, I mean, and I think a lot of folks are saying ever, people are building buildings on spec with no tenant.
Right.
That is unheard of, but the industry is not slowing down. So, that's one reason why you want to keep attracting them. But to your point, and I'll let you elaborate, but we've established a good life science cluster here. They want to be with each other, right?
They do.
Yeah.
And, so the value proposition for cities and towns is jobs.
Right.
The jobs that come from these employers are great paying jobs, well-funded jobs, and there's a lot of them, and they continue to grow. And I think the MassBio recently published a report that said that they're going to be they need more than 40,000 new employees into the life sciences industry to fuel its future growth.
Wow.
And the reality is, a lot of that growth, one of the epicenters of biotech development in the world is Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is amazing for all of us. And we're all lucky to have the things that are happening there. But the reality of that is it's just not going to be sustainable to have it that hyper-focused
just in one
forever.
Space.
It's going to have to grow. It's going to have, in order to make the cluster sustainable, in order to allow us to compete nationally and internationally against, our biggest competitors being California, Texas, North Carolina, states that are 3-4 times the size of Massachusetts.
Right.
To think that we're going to keep all of that growth inside 95 is just unrealistic. It's going to become unaffordable. We're not going to be able to access enough of an employee base, and the availability of space is all in traffic are already they're feeling that pain.
Right.
So the industry and I think the folks at the Life Science Center as well as MassBio fully recognize this as well, needs to expand to become a really regional cluster.
Right.
And Marlborough, Worcester, a lot of the points around throughout Metro West are just logical places for that growth to continue.
Yeah.
The towns end up with significant tax base expansion. These guys, not only do they have very expensive
equipment.
Exactly. They have expensive equipment that they pay taxes on. They have expensive real estate that they pay taxes on. They provide great jobs for residents that then move in and pay taxes. So there's a huge economic development potential for cities and towns that can be aggressive, and recognize that one of the key parts of this is really the ability to be speed to market. So towns that can be proactive in permitting, which Marlborough is. They can be proactive in getting pad-ready sites and buildings on spec.
Right.
Things that reduce that timeline and risk to market. Those communities will do really well, I think.
Yeah, and you're talking about the jobs that it creates. I mean, those from an economic development perspective, we talk one of our earliest episodes, the big fish feed the small fish, right? Yeah. So the 500 jobs that are over at Cytiva, those folks are all shopping at our stores, they're eating lunch at our restaurants, they're getting a haircut, maybe getting gas on the way out of town.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many trickle-down benefits to having them here. And especially now, I mean, we've been talking a lot lately about, what does post-COVID look like? And, to be completely honest, if anybody from TJX is listening, hear me, but we worry about companies like TJX that are they going to work from home forever? How much space do they need? What does that look like moving forward, the office buildings? But what we know for sure is that the life sciences and the bio folks, they can't work from home.
Right.
Yeah.
So they will continue to come in. They're going to need the space. They need more of it. They're not downsizing. They need expansion plans and they need growth. So that's where the industry, that's where it's going. That's where you want to be, right?
And you referenced Cytiva, and it's a good example that it's not all just big fish that you're focused on, because it started out as a company called Accelerex, Parrish Gallagher and his team, that was really revolutionary technology that really transformed the way we do biomanufacturing today, and actually put Massachusetts on the map as a location for potentially doing more biomanufacturing. Then was acquired by GE Health, and now Cytiva. But it started out as a much more modest story, and so we really got to foster that early stage biotech as well, because there's some unicorns in there.
Right. And I think with some of the big fish that we've been able to land and bring in, I think that shows the smaller fish that you can survive here, right? Like, Quest Diagnostics, Synovia. I mean, we could sit here and name so many of them. Boston Scientific, there's so many that are right here in our community, not to mention Central Mass. I mean, Worcester, all around us. There's so many that are right here, but you can find the talent. This is a place that people will come to work. So I think all of those things together paint a pretty cool picture of Central Mass and why companies would want to be here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, we got another question.
We do have another question from Ben. We may have answered this, but let's check anyways. He said, "Good morning. Has MBI set up or helped any companies that are in Marlborough today?"
Yeah. So in particular, StageBio, that was the most recent one.
Yeah.
But what was the other one? It's not at the tip of my tongue. Do you remember what it was?
So Verax.
That's right.
Was
Verax.
Another group that's here in the past. There was a group called Glyco Solutions that was in Marlborough for a long time. Another group that was in Marlborough for a long time, Averica. There was another group, and I'm blanking on the name right now, which is a shame because they're a great company.
So many of them.
That was in Marlborough for a long time as well, and just moved up 495 a little bit. But there's a number, there's a large
So
number
many.
of companies that have been in Marlborough.
So Jill, I think we have a graphic too of a map of some of the graduates that you guys have and where they've kind of gone, not just in Marlborough, but across the Commonwealth as well. It's kind of cool to see.
Is this the map? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So the message of the map is really, MBI companies start small in the incubator, but they end up all over the Commonwealth. And the most probably important thing on that map is, in the bottom right corner, there's over 1,000 jobs. Over 1,000 people in Massachusetts are working at companies that were founded at MBI. And that's just since we started tracking the statistics in 2000. There's a whole 15-year history before that we just didn't capture. And there's over $1 billion in cumulative economic impact from those employees that were, working at those companies.
Wow.
Have generated there's over 114 graduate companies. So
cool.
Yeah.
And you think about it. I mean, so that's 20 years of data, but you have another 15 years that's not even captured in that, right?
That we've been trying to dig into.
That's a huge impact, I'm sure.
And even to just this week, I'll give an example. There's a group called Paratech Pharmaceuticals, a large antibiotic development company that apparently has some tie to MBI in its early history.
Cool.
And is actually just now about to really hit profitability. And we found a great article talking about the continued growth of that company. So there's just so many of these interweaving stories. Groups like Illumina, where MBI 25 years ago helped participate in the tech transfer licensing out of Tufts. That helped support that company's initial start. There's a great
so many cool stories,
and a lot of that we haven't captured because it was really from kind of the early years,
early days.
So,
wow! Shout out to Kevin Sullivan too, because he was there at the very beginning. Great guy, which did a lot of the early days. He was there for a long time.
Kevin was there with MBI for 20 years, my mentor and friend, and Kevin was pushing a lot of this at a time where everything was really pushing the ball uphill.
Yeah. It was unheard of, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin was beating the drum on Central Massachusetts and biomanufacturing and BioTech, well before the masses were, and he deserves a ton of credit for that. And timing and good luck, I was fortunate that me and Kevin partnered up and started working together.
That's awesome.
And at a time where that ball was starting to push down the hill.
Right.
So
we say all the time, people much smarter than myself that were thinking about these things.
Exactly.
And I think earlier, just to date ourselves, but you said 30 years, but I think it's more like 40 years at this point, right?
Yeah.
84.
I was born in 84.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jill.
Yeah.
Maybe. No, it's more like 30 years. It's more like 30
More like
years.
30
We're going
years.
to round down because I was too. Yeah.
That's what I was taught in my math classes.
All right, another question?
Yeah.
All right.
So this is super interesting. So how does MBI attract new life science startups?
Yeah.
So what's your outreach like?
So we used to do a ton of outreach. And in fact, and I'll give a little story. So in 2019, we started an expansion project, which opened up in August of 2020. And we had bold plans for having a large marketing campaign to try to figure out how we were going to get new startups in the door, because that project more than doubled our total capacity to support startups. So we went from having 25,000 square feet of incubator space to now 50,000 square feet of space. Before we really had a chance to do marketing, and in the midst of a pandemic, we filled the space in 10 months.
That's incredible.
It's incredible, yes. So companies are really finding us because they're so desperate for space. And we have just such an innovative economy of entrepreneurs that want to do this. MBI is fortunate to have a great brand reputation out there. A lot of it comes through word of mouth or through a lot of our partners at MassBio, MLSC.
For sure.
That these companies are finding us. So a big focus of ours now is really how do we make sure that we find the companies with the best opportunity to succeed? Because when we have limited space, we want to make sure that we're trying to create that opportunity for the companies that have the greatest opportunity to impact patients and create jobs, which is really the mission. And so in that, we've actually put in a lot of processes to can't necessarily pick winners. You're never going to be able to do that in the startup world. You just ask any investor. But we've learned enough about what some of the fatal flaws are that we'll vet the companies, make sure that they have they've kind of got answers for a lot of those potential fatal flaw opportunities, and if they don't, we're going to give them that advice and say, look, you got to go back and really work on this stuff because we know enough now to know that's going to be a problem for you. So we're actually in a place where we're turning away companies and actually working on expanding again.
What a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Right. And at the same time, though, you're almost advising these folks and helping them be better in the long run, which is really kind of cool. Yeah. So you mentioned a couple of your partners. So you guys work really closely with Mass Life Science Center, Mass Bio. I mean, you're in such an academic, rich, location. Who are some of the folks that you guys lean on or that you work with most frequently?
Yeah. So you mentioned two of the big, there's
big ones.
Mass Bio and the Life Science Center are just treasures for Massachusetts. They do such a good job of convening the industry and bringing it together. One of the things that makes the industry so special is just how consolidated it is. Now we need to expand that and grow that because it's going to become unsustainable at some point. But it is really just so tight, so many close-knit relationships, and they all seem to come together at those two locations. So we partner with Mass Bio and the Life Science Center on almost everything we do. We're fortunate that we have a lot of the same beliefs and themes, which is supporting early stage innovation, growing the industry regionally, and also all of that with kind of an undercurrent of how do we really make this accessible for everybody. So how do we support underrepresented populations to get into this industry, so we can create opportunity, and also the industry needs 40,000 people to join the workforce. So
which everyone's staffing crisis right now, right? I mean, so that in and of itself is going to be a challenge, and how do we capitalize on it versus letting it continue to be a problem, right?
Yeah, so we got to make sure we're telling the story to people who don't have a scientist at Thanksgiving dinner. How do we make sure that we get this story out to everybody so everybody can participate in the growth of the industry, and we can create opportunity for folks at the same time?
And we're doing so in Marlborough. We're trying to really foster that through our schools. So our school to business partnership. We have the superintendent was a guest a couple months ago now. I think it was the first day of school. Actually, we brought him in on the first day of school. But we have a wonderful STEM program here, and just some amazing schools. There's AMSA, ASABET, amazing things. But we're trying to be a little bit like Kevin Sullivan 37 years ago, and think long term of how do you get these kids to want to work at the companies that are literally in their backyard, and sometimes it can be intimidating because you drive by and, I can never work there. I can never do that, but they can. And a lot of these companies, what's so amazing to me is that they're willing to take these kids right out of high school. Often, sometimes it has to be for whatever reason, college but internships, and come explore the lab, open their eyes and get them open to these things, because we got to create the pipeline.
And we got to expose these kids to it early, because being a programmer or a welder or a nurse, so many of these things are just so vivid in their mind as to what that job looks like. Being a QA specialist in a biomanufacturing lab is probably less so. So how do we try to let them know what these opportunities look like, and then also recognize that this isn't the easiest path. We all remember as English majors being in class,
the English majors
laughing at our friends who had all these labs every night. And now I'm saying, well, I probably should have taken a few more of those. But it's not the easiest path. They have additional responsibilities because it's so complicated. It's its own language. You have to learn. So how do we help provide the support to help them then get through that, which is not the easiest path.
All right, so you mentioned diversity. I want to give you an opportunity. So you've been getting a ton of love in the Worcester Business Journal lately, a lot of cool articles, but one in particular that we read and we were just really taken aback and just enthralled by was the Onramp program that you guys are running. Can you tell us a little bit about that? It's so cool.
Yeah, so we have a little bit of funding that we get through the state of Massachusetts that's targeted towards building a diverse life sciences workforce. And we got a series of partnerships through that we support. And one of them is a program that we've partnered with QCC, Quinsigamond Community College, and AbbVie on over the last several months. We funded it through that program. QCC took the charge. AbbVie provided curriculum help and support. And it's basically a program that in 10 weeks takes students out of QCC's foreign-born adults program and trains them in the very basics that they need to be an entry-level biomanufacturing technician.
That's awesome.
It's awesome. So these are roles that a lot of times they're taking people out of other careers straight into. But the success rate of those people is low, and there's a lot of turnover. So what we've tried to do is create a program where we can take people that are really hungry for opportunity, teach them the basics of kind of ESL for BioTech, because a lot of the language is complicated for people who have just gone through ESL
Right.
to learn the language themselves, and then trains them in some of the core basic premises of biomanufacturing. What is an SOP? What is GMP? What are,
Right.
why is it so important to document everything you do and follow the recipe exactly and do all these types of things, so that when they get there, they're really prepared
Right.
for what, and they don't make any mistakes that would
Right.
cause them to not succeed in the piece. So we love it for a bunch of reasons. We love it because it's taking these people that desperately need it, putting them right into jobs where they immediately at the end of their 10-week program get a interview with AbbVie, and we're trying to add additional employers to that as well.
So cool.
And the piece we love about it is it's scalable. So as we talk about the need for 40,000 jobs in this growing biomanufacturing piece, we need programs that can be scalable to train hundreds and thousands of people.
Right.
And with a 10-week program, we can do that. So we can, every 10 weeks, we can pump out a new cohort of really talented people to get into the industry. And we could run multiple classes. This could be a pilot or a model that's done at other community colleges around the state. That's the ultimate goal of this.
Right.
And we're really proud of our friends at QCC who really took this by the horns and put it together. And the AbbVie's just been such a good leader for us in the workforce area that they did a great job in providing their team, making their team available to make sure that the product that comes out of it is what industry needs.
Yeah. I think
Amazing.
that's amazing.
It's amazing.
So I was just thinking about my oldest son, Matthew. He's really into coding, and he wants to, I don't know what he wants to do. He's going to build my website.
He's not going to be an
someday.
English major.
He's not going to be an English major. Maddie, it's not happening. But there's a difference in today's educational and even recreational opportunities for kids than I think when we were growing up. Like when I was growing up, if you were going to play soccer, like you were a soccer player and you would see that through, and there's no quitting. Maybe it's just my family's dynamic. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is there's all these opportunities now for kids to do like a 6-week course on, this coding class. And there's so many opportunities for even middle schoolers. Like even at our local Whitcomb Middle School, we had STEM Week a few years ago, right before COVID hit. And all of the life science companies, all of them
They're all participating.
They were all there. They were like, we'll buy the T-shirts, we'll bring in the labs, we'll come in and do a panel. Everybody is giving opportunities for kids to hear people's stories of working. And listen, my personality is like this, and this is how I fit in this company. And I've got these different skills. And I think it's so important for young people, even in college, to get internships and experience in different industries or different roles in an industry.
Well, and I think the beauty of this program too is that it's not just that population either. It's like folks that are already grown, right? And so it runs the gamut.
Yeah.
So the first cohort graduated a couple weeks ago, and we were there to see them graduate. And they each got up and told a little bit about themselves. And there was a brother and sister from Colombia who had been in the country for a couple of years, and this was like a kind of makeshift this is like a great opportunity for them to kind of transform their life, alter their trajectory. There was a woman who had just moved to the country 9 months ago from, I think, Brazil.
Wow.
These are people that are coming here looking for opportunity.
Yeah.
And we're able to pretty directly connect them with it. And the idea is eventually that program will grow and serve more populations. But man,
That's
seeing
awesome.
the stories of the people who are impacted by it just knocks you out.
Well, you should be very proud of that. That's really cool.
It's pretty cool.
You can have, I think about so I speak a lot of Portuguese, but if I were to move to Brazil tomorrow, as much as my conversational Portuguese is great, I don't have all of the tech, like I do live streaming and video production. I don't have that vocabulary.
Sure.
Right.
So even though I can do a ton, and I have my master's degree, I would need to just literally learn the language of technology.
Yeah. Right.
It's called content-based ESL. So to give them that tool that just connects the skills and knowledge that they may already have and just might not have the articulation or the language skills yet. It's huge. And you're not going to learn that. I mean, you could do some YouTube searching, but to work with people that are actually in the field, this is really important to know.
Right.
This is kind of advanced, but you know what? It relates to your field. That's so powerful.
Yeah. And I just touch on a point you made earlier about, high school kids going through this and the opportunities that are out there, and they should take them because, look, the workforce, the jobs, it's just become so much more complicated and so much more intensive, and it rewards specialization and that experience. So the more of those things that they can do early and learn about their career, man, I don't know, I would have, if I did what I did in high school now, be nervous about my future. So, I think it's important that they take advantage of those opportunities. And there's a bunch of those programs out there. So we have a partnership with Worcester State University and QCC as well, where they're in the high schools exposing kids to these things. Awesome. They have weekend Avanza STEM expos. They have, they're trying to do everything they can to just provide that additional education and exposure to these students to try to help, shape them towards that path. Yeah. And I think one of the interesting things that's happening as well in the industry is starting to realize that because they need people so badly, how can they start to look at some of their job descriptions that maybe in the past needed a bachelor's or a master's degree and start to look at how do we downsize that with a really strong certificate program, which is another way to bring more people into the industry. So Mass BioEd has a great program in that. There's a great program up on the North Shore at GMGI that has a great program in that. Things that are trying to help just create simpler linkages to workforce. Yeah. And so those are things we want to support.
That 40,000 jobs, how many years is it? So they need that over the next, is it 5 years, 10 years, or now?
So Mass Bio is going to yell at me. I feel like it was like 2024. It's a near-term thing. This is, the industry, as the industry just continues to explode, there's a workforce challenge now.
Right.
So as we continue to explode, as some of these early stage startups start to become Modernas and start to become, AbbVie's, there's just going to be a huge need for really specialized employees, and we got to make sure we're creating that pipeline now, because you can't do it when you need it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that is a now problem is the real estate, right? And I think it speaks volumes that Bob Coughlin, head of Mass Bio for 20 plus years. I mean, how long Bob was there? Yeah. He's now at JLL. The fact that one of the biggest bio people in Massachusetts is now one of the biggest real estate firms says a lot. Yeah. That's what they need. They need people and they need space. And that's why we're seeing them building these buildings and getting it ready. To your point, speed to market. They need to get in these places now, and they need to find the talent now.
Totally agree. And so, both Bob and then also Travis McCready, who's the head of the Life Science Center, both went over to JLL.
Oh, he's at JLL too. That's right.
Dream team over there. And, part of it, I think, is that, the two key things. The first is, the biotech industry thinks about real estate totally differently than I was ever trained in it.
Right.
They don't think of it as a long-term asset or holding. It's really more of a tool. I need that tool when I need it.
Right.
And I don't necessarily, they're willing to pay to get it when they need it.
Right.
Because the opportunity cost of waiting and the opportunity cost of not having it is so high. So they think about real estate in a very different way. It's really speed, workforce, and then cost.
Right.
And you need people who understand that in the real estate world to help advise them and support them, and they have a different approach.
Yeah.
The second thing is everybody wants what Massachusetts has.
Right.
So there are communities all over the country now that they're working with as well that are working really hard to try to take what we have here. Right. So we need to stay hungry. We need to keep working hard at this, and we need to make sure that some of these issues that we have around the long-term sustainability we're really working on, which means we have to get communities like Marlborough, Worcester, Central Massachusetts, North Shore, South Shore, everybody's got to be in this game so that we can create the opportunity for the industry to grow.
Right. Awesome. And just a shout out again for Marlborough, why they would want to be here, but city form of government where we're meeting every 2 weeks, and that speeds market, it happens here. You're not waiting for town meeting for whatever. We can get zoning changes done within a couple of weeks, or special permits are turned around quickly, whereas, that's not necessarily the case in every community.
It's why you guys have done so well. Thanks. And it's why other communities are looking at Marlborough to say, how do we get this right? Yeah. Because you guys do an awesome job, and you're great for business, and the end result is great for Marlborough.
Everybody. Yeah. Well, we won't give away the secret sauce. We're going to keep that really near and dear to our
And so it's great for humankind. I mean,
absolutely.
Really.
No, seriously, not to be corny, but
at the end, you have all of these creative, entrepreneurial, scientific minds working together. I mean, just being in the same room, talking about working remotely can have its time and benefit and place, but also working near each other. There are so many walking down the hall to the restroom, running into someone from a different thing, and you don't know where conversations are going to end up.
Absolutely.
And if everybody's end goal is to help humankind and get people and keep people healthy, I mean, it's just so special. I want to walk through someday. I don't know.
Come on down,
I just want to be around.
I'm sure John would let us come down.
Yeah. And just think about the human impact of a group like Cytiva. So Cytiva is creating kind of portable modular clean rooms to simplify the biomanufacturing that is required to go through the FDA process quickly and efficiently and safely. So, that each of the companies that is their customer is doing something that is trying to save lives and really help patients. So, people drive by there, I'm sure they have no idea what's going on, but literally they're creating the tools that are going to make drugs get to patients fastly, quickly and safely.
Right.
So, there are people on the other end of this that are waiting for biotech, which is one of the cool things about the industry.
Right.
There's huge job opportunities, huge economic development gains.
So many different facets.
And then there's a huge kind of opportunity, especially when you hear some of these stories of ways that it directly impacts people.
Right.
So it's cool.
And we don't have time to get into it, but then you talk about like the supply chain. I mean, bringing a lot of that stuff back here and, having access and local access to those things is so important. But do we have a question or a comment before we wrap up? Because we are bumping up against time.
We are. I can't believe how fast time's gone.
It goes so quickly.
We just have one final question, and this might even be something we can offline brainstorm about, because I don't know if you know this, but I work with Marlborough Public Schools as well, and I help with the communications and social media and video production, all that stuff. But the program that we were talking about with QCC, man, is that scalable? Is that type of a program scalable to bring to the high school level?
So the whole goal of this is to make it scalable. Really to get it to a place where we can get, the massive demand met with a program that's quick and effective. So we're not quite there yet.
The Marlborough Public School System.
All right.
If you want to give us, if you want a trial school, I hope but guarantee we'd be open to that. That's so cool.
We're getting there. We had our first cohort graduate in December. We're going to try to run. QCC is going to try to run 2 more, I think, in the spring. Yeah. And then once we start to really grow and build this thing, the next question is going to be, how do we get this model out? To other places, because the demand is so huge.
Well, we talk about it all the time too. There's so many people that come to Boston, right? Mm-hmm. Boston to to go to school, and we have some of the best universities and schools in the world right here right at our fingertips. And how do we keep those people from graduating and leaving? We want them to stay here in Massachusetts and build that pipeline and continue to serve the companies and
if I
the rest of us.
Give just a message to the good people in Marlborough who are listening to this right now, is that there's a huge opportunity here right now. So if you're unemployed or underemployed and looking for an opportunity, look for opportunities in biotech. If you're on the city council or the MEDC or in the economic development level and you're trying to figure out how do you support Marlborough, there's a huge opportunity in biomanufacturing. Groups like Resilience, who is coming to the city right now, is a great team, and they're going to hire hundreds of people to try to manufacture medications for people in high risk areas. So there's all of these different opportunities that are coming. Marlborough is really well suited for it. If you're a property developer or a real estate owner and you have a large high bay warehouse, you should be thinking about biomanufacturing. There's a great opportunity for you in that. And if you're a property owner with a commercial office building, you should be thinking about biotech. So all of these people need to start thinking about this industry as an opportunity for them. And I'm sure you guys and us would be happy to try to help direct them to where to go.
So basically take those English majors and we're going to get all of us to be thinking about bio in some way, shape, or form, right?
There's opportunities for more than scientists in the industry.
That's right.
So
that's awesome.
Everybody's got a spot.
I'm even remembering our first Inside the Industry with Quest Diagnostics. And there was that great, I'm not sure what the timestamp is, maybe we'll throw it in the description or the comments here, but where Karthik went through and talked about all of the different paths.
Well, and all the things they touch. And
and all of the different like avatars, if you will, like the profile of someone that works in a biotech company looks very different. And there are so many different ways that if you're wanting to just get your feet wet and figure, so many ways to move up or to find your spot. So.
Right. You don't have to be a PhD scientist. There's a lot of opportunity.
Yep.
Yeah. And students should check out the MLSE's internship challenge. It's an awesome program to get internships where they'll refund the company for getting in there. There's a portal where they can find those opportunities.
Oh, awesome.
Super cool.
Great quick story, which is there's a group that graduated out of us, Blue Sky Biotech, and then became Lake Pharma, just recently became Curia. Wow. But we were talking with them several years ago, and their first intern that they hired through that program was actually still with the company and was managing the team of 10 interns that they had brought in that year.
That's
so
awesome.
There's a lot of upward mobility in the industry. So,
take advantage of it.
Take advantage.
So awesome. I feel like I've said that's super cool like a million
I'm
times
gonna
today.
go back and watch.
But don't do it. Don't do it.
I won't do it. I won't make a collage.
But that just goes to show this has been a super cool conversation. Cool. This is a really interesting, relevant, awesome topic to be talking about. Jon, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been really a great way to kick off the new year and to kick off the podcast. So thank you so much.
Hey, thank you both for having us, and thanks to Marlborough and MEDC for all you guys are doing. You're leaders in this.
Yeah. So. Continue to be partners and bring them in. If you got any companies that are looking to grow, you just send them our way. We're happy to take them.
No question.
So, awesome. Thank you all so much for joining us today for episode 20 of Exploring Economic Development with MEDC. We look forward to seeing you again the first Wednesday of February for episode 21. Have a wonderful Wednesday.